In our last lesson, we left off configuring our dispatcher servlet within our Spring MVC application. We'll pick up that configuration as we continue in this lesson. The dispatcher servlet is Spring MVC's central servlet that dispatches requests to the controllers within our applications. The dispatcher servlet also provides us with other functionality that helps us develop web applications. The dispatcher servlet is also integrated within the Spring IOC container. This allows you to use the dispatcher servlet alongside other Spring projects and Spring beans. We're going to begin setting up our dispatcher servlet by going to our web.xml file within the source main web app webinf directory. We'll just open the web.xml file, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove our welcome file list. Next, I'm going to begin to configure our dispatcher servlet much like I would configure any other servlet. The dispatcher servlet is a regular servlet. In fact, it extends the HTTP servlet base class. To set it up, we're going to use our servlet tag. And within the servlet tag, we're going to specify a name for the servlet. And we're going to call the servlet dispatcher. And now we need to specify the servlet class. And the servlet class we need to point to is the dispatcher servlet class within the Spring library. That class is org.springframework.web.servlet.dispatcher-servlet. Okay, so with our servlet class defined, we need to specify one more tag within the servlet tag, and that's the load on startup tag, and we're going to set that to 1. That tells this servlet to load when we load our web application, and it should be the first servlet to load. Now we're going to provide a mapping for our servlet. The mapping is going to define which URLs this servlet will handle the requests for. We need to first specify within our servlet mapping tag the name of the servlet, so that's the dispatcher servlet, and we want our dispatcher servlet to handle a certain URL pattern. And we're just going to specify the / as the URL pattern for our dispatcher servlet. Any request that does not get mapped to another resource will drop down to this default mapping, and that will be handled by our dispatcher servlet. With our dispatcher servlet in place, what's going to happen is when this servlet gets loaded upon our application startup, is Spring is going to look for a configuration file. By default, when we start our application, the dispatcher servlet is going to look for a configuration file named dispatcher-servlet-xml. The way it comes up with that name is it takes the name of our servlet and it appends -servlet.xml. When it looks for this file, it's going to look within our webinf directory. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to our package explorer, and within the webinf directory, we're going to create a new file by hitting Control-N, and we're going to type Spring Bean configuration file. That's the type of the file we're going to place within our webinf directory. We're going to name it dispatcher-servlet.xml. And this will create an XML file that can be used to configure our dispatcher servlet. At this point, we have almost everything we need in place to run our Spring MVC application. One other thing that we need to do, since we are using Maven and we've pulled in our dependencies, we need to make sure that those dependencies make it into our WAR that we're deploying. To do that, we can go to our project within the package explorer. If you just go to the course project and hit Alt-Enter, we're going to open up the project properties, and you can scroll down to the deployment assembly. We're going to go over and click on Add, and then Java Build Path Entries, and then Maven Dependencies. What this will do is it will make sure that all of our Maven dependencies are placed within the webinf lib directory of our WAR file. Okay, with our Maven dependencies added, let's now run our application. You can just right click on the project, go to Run As, and then Run on Server. What we'll see within our console here, the Spring output has been logged, so this is our dispatcher servlet getting initialized. There you see our last line is dispatcher servlet with name dispatcher processing get request. It has now been set up and we have a successful Spring MVC project configuration. At this point, it doesn't do much, but we will continue to expand upon this basic configuration and use it as a learning tool.